Good everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. So today I'm going to talk about more about interfaces. So in my last episode, if you remember, I talked about interfaces, right? So today I'll teach you how to use interfaces in an efficient way, right? That's the main intention of the video. So first thing first, so you need to register for an org if you haven't done so. So I've already done it. So I've logged into my org. So let's jump into the developer console, okay? So uh, the reason why I wanted to make this video is about, normally what I've seen, right, in my entire programming career, I've used interfaces in .NET and other languages, right? So at times you do encounter a scenario, right, where you will see a file, a single interface file, which contains methods, right? And a class which implements those interfaces, right, has to implement those methods, even though it makes no sense, right? For instance, let me give you a very classic example. Let's take an example of a cell phone interface, okay? So in a cell phone has, let's say, functionality, right? Use text because that's one of the functionality of a phone, right? And use phone, okay? That's use call, use 4G and use 5G, right? That's one of the functionality of a cell phone, okay? So let's talk about an example of a cell phone which is predates to early 2000, right? Let's say you were using Nokia phone. There was no such concept called 4G, 5G back then, right? So it's all, if 5G was launched like a year ago, okay, so it makes no sense for Nokia to, if you are having a Nokia class and inheriting from an iCell phone and forced to implement 4G, 5G, but there was no such thing back then, right? So it's the same goes with, say, other technology phone, right? LG back in the days, so there was no such concept called 4G, 5G. So if you are using an interface, okay, and let's say interface are four methods, and any class which will implement those interface has to implement those four methods. There is no exception to that rule, right? Because that's the contract class and interface sign, right? So whatever uh, methods interface supports, right, class has to implement it, okay? So in that case, it becomes kind of irrelevant. It's not really well designed code. So let me explain using an example so it become more clear. Okay, let's go to file. Let's create a new class, okay? Interface. So I can say I cell phone, okay? Right, so let's say we have change it to interface, okay? So just an interface, and it's gonna have four method, use text, void text, okay? And I say void call, okay? So I say void use 4G, okay? And I say void use 5G, okay? Um, all right, so this is my basic interface, right? Now let me create a class, okay? So which will implement this, okay? Let's say I want to try Nokia. Oh, come on, okay? So and I will implement it. So implements, okay? So I will say iCellphone, and so let me copy the method here. Obviously, because you have to implement it. I'm just gonna put a dummy method here, okay? So I'm gonna do say public, okay, and it's gonna say, come on, I'll arrange the method. Don't worry about it. I will tidy it up. So use text, okay, and it's gonna say public. Just gonna say system.debug. Use call. No, it's not just a call. Okay, and just say public, and we say system.debug. Okay, use 4G. Okay, and I'm gonna say public. Okay, so I'm gonna say system.debug. Use 5G. Okay, sounds good, right? So let me save it. It's gonna take. Okay, so I'm gonna do Control A, Shift Tab. Okay, so align properly, and just gonna make it tidier. But okay, Now, let me create one more class, okay? So let's say we're going to talk about new generation phones, today's phone, like 2020 version. Say Nokia Plus, for instance, okay? Nokia Plus. Um, okay, so I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to copy this one, okay? All right. All right. So Nokia Plus is something, it's just a fictitious phone, right? Okay. I'm just saying, don't worry about uh, the phone model number, and okay, just you can use any phone you want. So this is something which is launched, say 2020. So all the functionalities mentioned here, right? Text, call, 4G, 5G makes total sense because we have 5G technology, you have 4G, right? But whereas for the Nokia, right, which is predates to early 2000, 4G and 5G makes no freaking sense here. Okay, so it's been forced to implement 4G and 5G because it's a part of this iCell phone interface, right? So that's how the interface in class works. So if a class implements an interface, it's forced to implement the methods which is a part of an interface, right? Even though it makes no sense in this case. So this is a very bad design. Okay, so this is not how you should do it because your class should only perform a functionality which makes sense to the class, right? For instance, if it's a printing class, right, a printing class should only perform stuff to do with printing. It should not do like phone call because a printer can't call, right? I mean, it can fax, but at times, right, because and it can scan it, right? Um, so you have even the faxing. Let's say not every printer. I haven't seen maybe. Okay. So forget about the faxing. Okay. So let's say phone call, right? You can't call from a printer, right? You can definitely scan it, right? You can email it, and you can take a printout and that kind of stuff, right? But calling it makes no sense, right? So you should not be implementing stuff in a class which makes no sense to the class, right? That's how a good design pattern or organized code should be like. Okay, so this is a very bad design pattern. What we have, this is a very bad code, because Nokia class is being forced to implement 4G and 5G, right? It makes no sense. So we have to fix it. So how to fix it? Let's create another interface. Okay, um, so here I would say I am ADV cell phone. Okay, now what we're gonna do? I'm gonna take these two methods from here. Okay, come on. Come on. Okay, I copy this, Control X. I'm gonna change it to interface. Okay, and save it. Okay, and I'm gonna change it and save it. Okay. Now, if you look at this, right, we need to do a little bit tweak to our code. Okay, so it's gonna take some time to save it because it's usual. Um, Okay, all right. So it's all safe. Okay. Now let's look at the mobile class. Okay. So mobile class, iNokia class, right? Okay. It won't have any problem uh, whatsoever. Okay. Um, so the reason why it won't have any problem here is that because it's already implementing text and call. Okay, which is fantastic. But the 4G and 5G is not a part of iCell phone, so you can easily remove this one. Okay. Now, and if you try to save it, it works. Okay, because it's implementing iCell phone methods, right? Which is the text and Excel, right? Okay. Um, Whereas in Nokia Plus, right, we do need 4G and 5G, but it's true that it's implementing 4G and 5G, but it's not a part of an interface. And you remember the entire concept of interface, we have to go towards abstraction, right? But in this case, it's not happening that way. We are implementing two extra methods, which is not a part of iCell phone interface, right? So which is not correct. So how to fix it? So the way to fix it, you do something called, go here. So you do here, Remember that one thing I talked about abstract classes, that you can't use multiple inheritance in Apex, right? So that means that you can't extend more than one class at a time, right? So if you can't say, a class X extends, A and B, it's not possible, right? Whereas in other programming language like C++ does that, but there's a diamond problem associated with that. I would encourage you to read about it if you're interested. C++ multiple inheritance. So but whereas you can implement multiple interfaces, right? So this is one of the advantage of it, right? You can use more than one interface and you can implement it using a class, okay? So like we have done it here. So this is why interfaces are very powerful. It helps you to do code towards an abstraction, right? So that's exactly what I want to talk about today. I hope you understood the concept of interface. The reason why I wanted to do this episode, just to make sure you guys understand how to use interface in an efficient way, right? Because I've seen different language, one big chunk of an interface file, and it's used in a class which makes no sense, right? So that's not a good design whatsoever. Okay, so if you wanted to write a code in Apex, I would highly encourage you to write a code in an efficient way, in a better design way, right? Because it's the concept of the design patterns plays a very important role. That differentiate a good programmer from a bad program, right? Anyone can write a piece of code, but the way to write a code and optimize it in an efficient way, that's how what makes you a great programmer going forward, if that's what you're after. Okay, right. So that's pretty much I wanted to talk about today. So the next time I'm going to talk about error handling, right, which is very important, right? So how to handle errors, right? Because we tend to get errors in a code, which is normal. In a programming career, you will tend to, it's very important that you have to do error handling, because data can go wrong, and sometimes things can go wrong in the code, right? So it has to be captured. Okay, so that's one of the things I'm going to talk about next time. Okay. That being said, greetings and adios. Take care. Bye bye.